Well, there you have it, modern day tongues. I'll give you the interpretation. So, tongues were first prophesied through the prophet Isaiah centuries before the birth of Christ. In Isaiah 28:11, Isaiah says, "For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people." Tongues first occurred in Acts chapter 2 at Pentecost, with similar experiences in Acts chapter 10 and 19. Based on those passages, a fair definition of tongues would be the ability through the Spirit to speak in a language not previously known. Tongues can also be called praying in the Spirit. The terms are used synonymously in 1 Corinthians 14:14. It is an actual language. That's actually what the word tongue means in those passages. Glossa, tongue or language. Now, some people think because of Acts chapter 2 that if tongues are from God, the tongue speaker will always speak in a known human language that someone in the area will recognize. Now, you might want to keep in mind that in 1 Corinthians 13, Paul talks about the tongues of men and of angels, but some people think that's hyperbole, so let's just for argument's sake assume that it is. Well, Paul does still tell the Corinthian church to make sure that before someone gets up and gives a message in tongues, that there is an interpreter. So, like, somebody might not know what they're saying. It's possible. If you've heard someone speaking in tongues and you did not recognize what they were saying, and neither did anyone else around you, don't panic. According to the CIA World Factbook, there are approximately 7,100 known human languages. There's a lot of options out there. Also, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 14, "Undoubtedly, there are all sorts of languages in the world, yet none of them is without meaning." Let's talk about how tongues work. Your spirit is literally praying through your mouth. No brain required. In fact, there are studies that show this. The frontal lobe, the part of your brain associated with speech, is mostly inactive during tongue speech. That's how you can know you're not just making it up. You can actually read while you're speaking in tongues. I read my Bible all the time while I pray in tongues. You can pray in English in your head and pray in tongues out loud. This happens to me all the time. I'll be praying, I'll be focused on what I'm saying in my head to the Lord, and after I come out of my focus, I'll be like, wow, I was actually praying in tongues that whole time. I didn't even hear myself. It's like when you daydream and you don't hear what's going on around you. It's like that. It requires no mind. Let's talk about what tongues is not. Tongues is not required for salvation. That is a doctrine of demons designed to get you to doubt your salvation. It's not even a sign of spiritual maturity. The Corinthian church, Paul called them babes in Christ. They were little babies. They all spoke in tongues. Not a sign of spiritual maturity. You can get saved and speak in tongues the same day. Heck, you could do amazing and great things for the Lord and never speak in tongues. It kind of helps, but you don't have to. You do not need to attend a charismatic church to speak in tongues. You don't need a bunch of people to gather around you, lay hands on you, and yell Shundi Bundy for 30 minutes. First time I spoke in tongues was in my car on the way back from the bank. How spiritual is that? So why would you pray in tongues? Well, have you ever wanted to pray for something but did not know exactly what to pray or how to pray? That's when you pray in the Spirit. You pray in tongues. That's what Romans 8 says. Paul also told the Corinthian church that even with all their shenanigans that they were doing, he wanted them all to speak in tongues. Also, God put tongues in the church, just like he put pastors and teachers in the church.